Thank you very much. My name is, as you've heard, Annika Haugen. I'm from the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research, and we have been working with adaptation to climate change for several years, both in research projects and in more as consultants. So now I'm going to present the case studies for you. I will present all the case studies, short presentations of each of them. We have had 9 case studies that has been conducted in 6 countries with a variety of geophysical locations, historic place types, stakeholders, climatic scenarios, and cultural contexts. And the adaptation plans have been made for each demonstration case. One project partner has been responsible for each site, working with a local partner. Situated in the southern part of Iceland, a cultural landscape. And the landscape is filled of green fields and eroded heaths, and is situated in the biggest glacier of Europe, Vatnajökull, close to the biggest glacier. Within the area, there are grounds and different farmlands from the early Middle Ages to the 20th century. And the area consists of farmland in which are private properties, so there are several different kinds of stakeholders. The climate risks at this case is there are increasingly outbursts of floods from the nearby Vatnajökull glacier. There are changes in the groundwater affecting the underground preservation of archaeology. There are wind erosion and changes in vegetation and human activities, such as farming and construction. So the adaptation proposals for Skaftatunga is to make flood protections where that is applicable, and survey the archaeology on selected sites and riverbanks, and more informed decision-making processes regarding sites at risk, and also to increase the awareness among the locals to help protect the site. So the next case is Øndverdernes. It's a fishing station and farm, also on Iceland, from the Middle Ages and well into the 20th century. There are 39 ruins from different periods, and parts of the ruins are listed, and the rest is protected by Icelandic law. So now it's a state-owned property and the care of the national park. We are in Øndverdernes. The climate risks is more extreme weather conditions in general, and higher tide, an increase in severe storms, and more erosion around the coastline, and of course increase of tourism too. So the adaptation proposal is to repair the ruins and coastal protection, and also redesign paths and rest stops to better control movement of people around the site. So if we move to Russia, Ĺslands Island, which Carsten mentioned earlier. It's situated in Arkhangelsk Oblast in the northwestern part of Russia, and it's an archipelago of 6 islands in the White Sea. There's been monastic activity since the 15th century with a monastery fortress and several churches dating from the 16th to the 20th century, and with a historic hydraulic landscape. There are 3 different stakeholders involved, both university and museum. And the problems regarding climate risks in Solovetsky Islands is increase in average temperature and precipitation, as well as sea level rise, which is causing decay, especially of wooden elements. And also tourism development, the damage from tourists is increasing. So the adaptation proposals for Solovetsky Island is to develop, regarding the material decay, to develop environmental monitoring program, especially for the monastery and the hermitages. And regarding the sea level rise, to review options to utilize the historic hydraulic landscape. And for the tourism, it's necessary to develop a sustainable tourism strategy. So we move to Sweden, to Bachtian, which is situated in the northern part of Sweden, rather close to Trondheim and Røros on the Norwegian side, in Jämtland County. It's the land where the reindeer calves are born. The Samis are considering the cultural heritage as a holistic system where material and biological heritage is combined with immaterial heritage. They interact and are dependent on each other. So based on the holistic view of the Samis, the discussions about the effects of climate change must take immaterial cultural heritage values into account. And regarding the material and biological heritage, the climate risks are deterioration processes of building constructions caused by higher temperature, extreme weather and humidity, and in combination with less usage and manage. Regarding the biology, the reindeers are moving, and there is an increase in change of both vegetation and insects caused by higher temperature. And if we move to the immaterial heritage, use and knowledge and traces disappear and language changes. The stories lose meaning when meeting place, use and construction disappear. Meaning of words are forgotten. So adaptation proposals for Bachtian is to, regarding the material and biological heritage, to save usage and maintenance of teepees. It could, for example, be managed and owned by the community, and to implement water management measures and document the existing material heritage as well as vegetation, insects, and animals. And regarding the immaterial heritage, a forum or platform for storytelling could be and presentations such as season signs, climate stories, and sites and names could be done. And an action plan for traditional knowledge implementation should be established too. So we move to the historic town of Inverary in Scotland, which is located in the west of Scotland, in the town of Argyll Bute, near the head of Loch Finn. It consists of an 18th century planned town located on the loch's shore, with extensions from the late 19th and 20th centuries. The 18th century Inverary is a typical traditional county town of Argyll and an ancestral home to the Duke of Argyll. So the climate risks is in Inverary is, as in many other places, the annual average precipitation is projected to increase, and this will make the weathering of stone detail at Inverary Cross increase, and heavier river flow will cause increasing pressure on the Array Bridge foundations. Regarding the projected increased sea levels, there are risks for that the waves will overtop the seawall, particularly during storms. So what to do with this? The adaptation proposals is to dredge channels to decrease water flow underneath Array Bridge, to repair moldings on Inverary Cross to protect from erosion. And regarding the sea levels, in fact, you have to accept the deterioration in the long term. So we move to Ireland, to Ballinskellig. It's an abbey and a castle on the southwest coast of Ireland. And the abbey is a ruin of an Augustinian abbey dating from the 12th century, mostly upstanding masonry, unroofed, surrounded by a historical graveyard and with masonry boundary wall, mass concrete walls, seawall to the south. And the castle is a ruin of a tower house dating from the 15th century and 16th century, and upstanding masonry but unroofed. The climate risks at this place is that the wind is increasing and the number of high magnitude storms as well as sea level rise. This is causing surface erosion of seawall surfaces of the concrete seawall and damage due to wave force to grave slabs and gravestones. And the increase in frequency of heavy precipitation events during winter and autumn is causing surface abrasion of masonry surfaces, including stonework and water joints, and saturation of masonry walls as upstanding castle remains. So what to do with this? The adaptation proposals is to repair and maintain the existing seawall in front of the abbey and monitor coastline damages. And regarding the heavy precipitation events during the winter storms, to consider revising the drainage system through and under the seawall, to repair and repoint the masonry in key locations. And then we move back to Scotland to Thrieve Garden and Estate. It's situated a mile west of Castle Douglas in the southwest of mainland. It's 64 acres of landscaped garden encompassing rockery, rose and Victorian-style walled garden and glass houses. And the climate risks and threats is increased storminess and higher intensity winds, which is uprooting trees. And the increase of mean annual temperature is making a shift in growing season and patterns, introducing new pests and invasive plants species, which will then be followed by damage to local plants and species and materials. And the annual precipitation makes it an increase in surface flooding. So the adaptation proposals for Thrieve Garden is to build a shelter belt to minimize the wind and to introduce biosecurity to protect from new and spreading infestations. And regarding the annual precipitation, to introduce more of a drainage system and a well-functioning drainage system. So we move to Norway, Ĺslands municipality, which is a valley with farms and very dramatic mountain nature with several summer farms. In old times, it was the shortest route between the east and the west of Norway. And Langhuset is a summer farm area still in use, and it includes buildings, tracks, paddocks, and fences. The wooden buildings as a category is a very rich building culture and adapted to available resources and climate conditions in that area of the country. So the climate threats are increased precipitation and heavy rainfall, increased mean annual temperature, and more flooding, surface flooding and landslides. And this makes the risks for more damage on tracks, buildings, and also increased deterioration from rot and insects in these wooden buildings. Regarding adaptation proposals, it's proposed that there is a need for financial support for repairs following damages for sudden events. After a flooding, there's a need for financial support in the whole valley, for example. And there's a need for help for owners with advice, documentation, and development of applications for support, improvement, maintenance, and protection measures. There's also a need for better cooperation with stakeholders, information support, clarification of roles and expectations. So at last we move to Svalbard, the abandoned mining town of Hjorthavn, which is situated a long distance north of Norway, as you can see here. Hjorthavn is a mining town established in 1917 and abandoned in 1940. It's protected by law. And today there are several buildings that are in use as private recreational cabins. It contains an almost complete mining community. And there are a lot of problems related to climate risk, climate change in Hjorthavn. So we had to select some issues due to capacity and time. Regarding the building foundations, there are problems with melting permafrost, solifluction and sliding piles, and fungal decay too. And there are cable car constructions and wooden remains that are suffering from melting permafrost too, and fungal decay, and tourists. And railway sleepers and remains of a locomotive, which is threatened by fungal decay, corrosion, and coastal erosion, and tourists. So, what kind of adaptation proposals are short-term? Regarding the building foundations, insulate the ground to keep it frozen, and to build protection wall to prevent the building from sliding and strengthen the foundation. And regarding the cable car construction and wooden remains, to protect the building fence by building fences and keep visitors away, and repair damaged parts. And railway sleepers and remains of the locomotive, you could bury it or you can move it away from the shore. You could build fences or other forms of physical protection, and build bridges to walk on. So, and then in addition, there's a general adaptation proposal, which goes on documentation and monitoring, and map historic development to establish context and understand remains. And of course, increase and develop information to visitors and educational guides. So as a summary, we would like to mention that the case studies were essential for helping us to develop the method produced in the Adapt Northern Heritage Project, especially the knowledge related to the importance of a flexible method was a valuable result of the case studies. So keywords after this project is that local knowledge is essential and local stakeholders is very important. It's also important with a positive and good communication. And the flexibility in the method is important since the needs and are different from site to site. Interdisciplinary discussions are necessary. And it's also important with updated local or regional climate predictions for site scenarios. Following up the proposed measures is an important issue. And finally, we would like to mention that international as well as national networks have been of great importance in the project and will increase the quality of future work related to adapting our cultural heritage to climate change.